Hey Jayhawk fans, Keegan Russell here with another Rock Chalk edition of the Sports Authority Gurus podcast. If you haven't done so yet, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, or the iHeartRadio app so that you never miss out on any future episodes. And believe me guys, 16 episodes in and this podcast is just getting started. We have tons of content in the works and many exciting shows and guests coming down the road. So you want to jump on the wagon now and hit that subscribe button right now. Jayhawk fans, for the first time since October 24th, 2009, your Kansas Jayhawks football program has found themselves in the top 25 rankings of college football. Sliding in at number 19, rightfully placed directly in front of our little brother down in Manhattan. With the monster top 25 matchup on the line this Saturday against the number 17 ranked TCU Horned Frog, the Jayhawks welcome in the College Game Day crew for the first time in the football program's history. Now, let's break down this matchup. All right, guys, let's bring my guest Tyler Crispin back on, my usual voice when we talk KU football and KU athletics. Tyler, man, how's it going?
I'm doing good. It's an exciting time to be a KU football fan.
Yeah, so we're not even going to dance around. We're going to jump straight into this. The Kansas Jayhawks are finally ranked after being 5-0 on the season. They are slotted in at number 19, which rightfully so, just ahead of our little brothers at K-State down in Manhattan at number 20. But KU's ranked number 19. Let's start right there, Tyler. This is the first time since October 24th of 2009 that KU football has been ranked top 25 nationally in college football. What are your thoughts on that? Is this a good spot for the number 19, higher, lower? Or are you just excited to finally see that across the bottom, that there is a number next to Kansas football?
It's kind of wild because, like you said, the last time we ranked was what, 2009.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost hard to fathom that. So, but I think they have us ranked right around where we should be. But we're definitely going to have a chance to prove that we've earned that ranking against TCU this week.
Yeah, this last week in college football, there was a lot of movement in the top 25. Several teams in that 18 to 25 spot dropped out. Other teams, worked their way in. So I agree with you there. I think 19 is a pretty good spot, which leads us, straight into TCU this weekend. They're slotted in at number 17 right now, rightfully so. They've had an impressive year. Their strength of schedule is in the top 15 right now. We'll get into some of this a little bit more here later in the episode. But TCU versus Kansas, 17 versus 19. KU is the home team. They are currently listed as a 7-point underdog. No surprise there because TCU is coming off of a whopping of Oklahoma, 55-24 last week that we'll get into. But because it is a top 25 matchup, 17 versus 19, that also means that Kansas is hosting college football game day this weekend. And for you KU fans out there, this is the first time in KU football program history to be hosting it at home. Now, they were a part of College Game Day several years ago when there was that KU-Mizzou matchup at Arrowhead, number 1 versus number 2. But this is the first time that we are hosting it on our campus here in Lawrence, Kansas. So, Tyler, first time hosting College Game Day. How excited are you for this moment, and what do you think it means for our program nationally?
I think it's the promotion can't be understated. That all this publicity, KU hadn't got anything like this within the last 10 years, and just the buzz around campus, around the team, around the university to get College Game Day to come out. We're used to seeing them in basketball. I think we're Allen Fieldhouse is the top place that they've been the most times, but for football to improve and start pulling their weight. I think that when an athletic department, especially basketball and football, when both teams are good, I think they can kind of feed off of each other, and it definitely benefits both teams. But I mean, the excitement's just—it's hard to explain. After all the winless seasons, all the different coaches, it feels like we finally crossed that threshold, and it's nowhere to go but up. And there's a lot of excitement around KU football, and I couldn't be more excited.
So this has been in the works for several weeks now. KU fans initially hoped that this might have been back in week 3, at coming off a West Virginia conference win, where Duke was also undefeated. So you had 2 basketball schools, but they ended up going, I think, to Tennessee that weekend. And then it was, KU went 4-0, or I'm sorry, 3-0. to host Iowa State, who was also coming off of a pretty decent start to the season. So you thought maybe on homecoming that could be the case, but nope, not again. KU pulls off the win last week against Iowa State. Not the best game offensively, but a really, really strong outing defensively. So now we find ourselves sitting here 5-0. It was maybe 24 hours later that it was announced that college game day was coming here. So we're gonna see the whole crew. Reese Davis, Kirk Herbstreit, Lee Corso, and the bunch are going to be here in Lawrence. The game day truck has already arrived. As of this point, it is Wednesday evening, so the game day crew is going to start getting set up over the next day or so. They have some stuff going on Friday on the hill. So they are going to position themselves on the hill about halfway up the Campanile. They're going to get there from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Saturday morning to preview the game, do all that jazz that they usually do, make predictions. But then that final hour before kickoff, they will move from outside the stadium to inside the stadium and do all the final breakdown of the game. What's exciting, I think, about this, not only that the exposure we're getting nationally, being on television, having everybody hone in to Lawrence, there's also a ton of top recruits coming this weekend. I was just reading a tweet earlier that said they're up to about 75 confirmed recruits that'll be in attendance Saturday. So this is also huge from a recruiting standpoint to one, be on television nationally, having college game day here, being a top ranked team, all of this undefeated at home. The booth is sold out for the third week in a row, also the first time since 2008, 2007. So just a lot going on this week in Lawrence, all prepping for this big matchup against TCU. So Tyler, I just mentioned the recruiting thing. What do you think college game day and being ranked top 25, being undefeated with the success we've had, how do you see that correlating with an uptick in recruiting?
Well, I think that, just that kind of promotion and being on a national stage is something that KU hasn't had. And anytime, you go 5-0, there's going to be momentum. So I think that's good for recruits because one of at least locally, they talked about how they kind of wanted to see some, improvement from some of the local recruits before they would commit. So I think the fact that, we've started off so well will definitely help that. And then even the ones that have already committed, how good do you think they feel that they like the guys like Taylor Davis and Quebeca, the wide receiver, and there's a couple other ones that have been committed this whole time. And I see tweets every once in a while, even from current players like Craig Young, talking about how people always ask him why he came to Kansas. All you were going to do is lose, and it's kind of proving that the guys that had faith in Leipold and what they're doing, that it's starting to pay off, and I hope we can just keep building on that. And then the recruiting will kind of snowball and just kind of KU will recruit itself if we have enough success.
Absolutely. So big, big weekend ahead of us. College game is going to be exciting. I'm hoping I can find myself there Saturday morning. Unfortunately, one of the downsides to being an adult is having this thing called a job and having to work. And even though I run my own store and control the schedule, I might have to be working and miss out. So I'm hoping to find myself there and hopefully able to go to the game as well. But KU fans, big, big Saturday ahead of us. If you can, I'm pretty sure tickets are probably sold out now for game day itself. But if you can find yourself anywhere up on the hill Saturday morning, you'll want to get up there and not miss out. So let's transition to the game itself. And before we get into the breakdown of TCU, a couple quick headlines I wanted to jump on with you and kind of get your take on real quickly here. First one, rumor is that Gavin Potter has chosen to leave the team. 4 games in, is deciding to redshirt for the rest of the year and enter the transfer portal. I found that very surprising considering how much he was playing the last week and the fact that we're a good team right now. So, what are your thoughts on that? Have you seen anything additional into that? Leipold talked about during the press conference and basically said it's disappointing, but that was his decision, and we're moving on.
It was kind of surprising just because, he played a lot in that Duke game. And it was after that game that I think he officially or unofficially entered the transfer portal. But I don't know if he saw, guys behind him making improvements and thought that he was going to lose playing time. But you think it'd be hard to, give up on 5-0, especially he's kind of got a big personality. So you think he would want to, because he would talk a lot of stuff and then we would lose. You'd think he would want to be a part of a successful team, but he may transfer and go G5 or lower school and maybe he wants more playing time. I didn't really hear anything definitive, but it did kind of surprise me a little bit.
Yeah, it's been pretty much silence from Gavin Potter and his camp. The only thing I can think of is, the emergence of Craig Young stepping in. They do have an older linebacking crew, so maybe he saw as the rest of the season went on his minutes dwindling, or maybe there's another program out there that's been in his ear lately saying, "Hey, even though you guys are great this year, you're not going to see the playing time you want. We'd like to have you here." Who knows what's going on there, but that was kind of an odd thing to see in the middle of the week. Didn't play it all this last weekend, like you said, because he kind of quietly snuck that in last week. So that is one headline. I think that doesn't change too much with the linebacking crew. They're still got a lot of depth there, as we'll see coming up Saturday. Second headline I want to talk about real quick is if you guys watched the game this last weekend, Daniel Highshaw found himself getting an injury to the hip that he had missed all of last year on. As of right now, it's listed as a dislocated hip. He was taken to the hospital Saturday during the game, and we found out later the severity of it, and that coach was able to go see him. But there's really no official word other than he's going to be out for a while. There hasn't been any designation of if that means he's back in the season, if he sits out the whole year. Not really sure what's going on there. Hopefully, we'll find out more here in the next week or so. But what do you make of that injury, and what does that change, if it does, the dynamic of this offense moving forward for the rest of the season?
Well, first off, Highshaw's my guy. He runs so hard. It's hard not to like a guy like that. So it stinks that he got hurt after he battled back the first time. And you can see when he stays healthy, he's a complete game changer. I think he offers a little bit more than, or a little bit something different, we'll say, than Neal or Kai Thomas or even Savion Morrison. I think he's just a hard runner that, I mean, he breaks at least one tackle, if not three or four. I think we'll miss that. I think it is kind of a luxury that we do have a deep backfield, but hopefully Kai Thomas is healthy and can contribute. I heard that he was dealing with some kind of turf toe, maybe, but he might be able to go. Like he was available in emergency for the game last week, but I think he's going to have to step up. And we've seen flashes from Morrison, but I think it'll, Jalen, it was weird because in the second half, the first half we were running that option, and it seemed like we were having really good success, and then in the second half, it seemed like we kind of went away from that. So I don't know if that had something to do with the Highshaw injury or if we were just playing, conservative, try to run the clock down and get out of there with a win. But I'm hoping it doesn't change the offense too much. But like I said, it's hard to replace a guy like Highshaw.
Yeah, Highshot's had an impressive year. Runs the ball so hard to tackle and bring down. Definitely going to miss that the rest of the season if he misses the whole season. But that does leave the door open for guys like Morrison, Kai Thomas, and even a Torrey Loughlin to step in and fill in some more playmaking responsibilities. Because if we don't see more of that, you're going to see defenses start to hone in on Devin Neal and slow him down. But if we can keep that rushing attack up this weekend and show the rest of the league that even without high shot, we're still just as dynamic, I think they'll be just fine. So let's get into the matchup itself. Like I said, TCU is ranked number 17. They are coming off of quite an impressive season as well. They are currently undefeated, like I mentioned it earlier. TCU, like I said earlier too, they are coming off a massive beatdown of Oklahoma last week, 55-24. Now, Oklahoma did miss a lot with their quarterback room. Spencer Sanders got hurt earlier in the game, so they were running with a backup throughout the game. But TCU dominated that game from start to finish. Watching that, I didn't really get to watch much of the game itself, but seeing it across headlines throughout the day, it was like, wow, TCU is stomping them, and it's been impressive. So when you look at these two teams, they really do match up fairly well. Pretty similar teams. Both teams have a very high powered offense, and in this case, TCU actually averages more per game than us. They're currently averaging 48.5 versus our 41.6. Both teams allow about 22 to 24 points a game, so pretty similar there. But here's the crazy thing: TCU is averaging right now close to 550 yards of offense per game, almost 300 passing and 250 rushing, versus our 420 of just about 200 passing and 218 rushing. Now, last week, that Iowa State defense was really solid, so that really pulled our averages down. So if you take that game out of it, pretty evenly matched here. But TCU has a pretty impressive offense. Max Duggan's been there a while now. He's off to a great start, averaging over 75% completion percentage. His statistics pretty much line up with what Jalen Daniels is doing as well. Um, they are very diversified offense. They've got a bunch of running backs that can do a whole lot of things. So they kind of spread the ball around just like KU has, but on paper, this team is pretty even with us. So what's your takeaway from TCU so far, and what do you think is gonna what part of their game do you think is going to give KU the most fit that would potentially stop us from going 6-0?
TCU's they've got a high-powered offense. I think they scored or they put 40 on Oklahoma in the first half, and because I was watching the scores too. But like you said, Duggan can run and throw it, and I think the quarterback run yardage from him is something that could really hurt us. But I think our defense has improved quite a lot over the last couple of weeks. And I think we talked about it before that the defense usually takes a little bit longer to gel than the offense. So I think we're starting to see some of that. So it'll be interesting to see how we go about trying to stop some of that quarterback run game. But I think a guy like Craig Young with his speed, they might choose to kind of leave him out there as a spy to kind of watch, make sure Duggan doesn't take off, and hopefully limit some of his yards. But they're going to score. I mean, we're going to have to score to win the game. So I think we'll see a little bit more out of our offense this week than we did last week.
Yeah, this is definitely setting up to be a barn bash, as they call. This should be a high scoring game. Both defenses aren't bad, but aren't great. They do have things they do well. KU defensively versus TCU is a little bit better at rushing the passer. They've Duggan's been sacked 6 times on the year so far versus Jalen Daniels 2 times. So maybe there's some potential for KU to get there to the quarterback quicker. I'm always one. Every football game always comes down to the guys in the trenches, your offensive line versus our defensive line, and our offensive line against your guys. So can the guys up front control the line of scrimmage both offensively and defensively? That'll get us started because we'll need the run game going early to keep Daniels moving and keep the defense on their toes. But defensively, if they're applying pressure and they're keeping Duggan in the pocket instead of letting him get out and scramble, I think they're going to be solid there. But like you said, this is probably a game where of all the guys on the field, this is a game that our linebackers need to stand out the most. Like you said, Craig Young has been pretty impressive so far as he's gotten used to this defense. Very quick, super athletic. Can he keep Duggan in check throughout most of the game? Him along with the other linebackers, McCaskill and Gilliard and Taiwan Berryhill, who's having a fantastic season. Can that group of linebackers control the running game and keep things in front of them? Be sound when it comes to tackling and getting those guys to the ground early and often, then I think we're set up to be pretty solid because I'm not too scared about their passing attack. They do have a pretty decent receiving core. They've got, as I was pulling up stats here, pretty well balanced, just like KU. They've only have one guy with over 200 receiving yards on the season, but they've got 4 guys with double-digit receptions, and they've got like 15 guys total that have caught the ball. So they like to spread the ball around. They average about 13.2 yards a reception, so they're moving the sticks quite a bit. But if that defensive line and linebacker group can hold up, I think we can put them into a lot of third and long positions or at least make them uncomfortable. How about we switch to the offensive side? What do you think KU needs to do to maintain the success they've had offensively? Last week again went up against a very tough defense that slowed them down. But what do you think this game looks like from an offensive standpoint for the Hawks?
I think it's something that we'll have to get Daniels playing like he did the first 3 games. He seemed a little off in the last one, so maybe giving him some early check down throws to kind of get him in a rhythm. Or I think we need to get him back on the edge to where he can either pass it, run it, or pitch it. And I think having that triple option is something that's really hard on the defense. It seemed like we got a little bit away from that in the second half of the last game, and we kind of went with some runs up the middle and stuff. But I think Daniels will have a better game. I don't expect him to miss as many throws as he did last week. There was that one wide open, would have been a touchdown to Quentin Skinner, I believe. And I mean, he just missed him. So I think Daniels will be sharper. Um, And then I think it's like you said, it's going to be a barn burner. So we're going to have to put up points. But if our defense can, get a field goal instead of a touchdown and we score, I think that'll be a big difference. So I'm looking for a lot out of the offense and I think it'll be a real good game.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I do think this is going to be one of KU's best tests of the season, coming off of a game like they had against Iowa State. How quickly can they bounce back? Can they control the tempo, control the game? Like TCU, they're very similar as far as time of possession. They both like to work the field quick and have big plays. So this is one where maybe Kotalinki spreads the ball around enough to kind of slow it down, and maybe we see some 6, 7, 8 minute drives versus 3, 4 minute drives. I think that'll definitely help as far as controlling the time of possession. But can they play clean? Both teams are pretty even when it comes to penalties. Both teams have definitely had way more penalties than their coaches would like to have. So can we play clean football? Can the line hold up both sides? Defensively, can we keep those guys in front of us, get out in open space, make good tackles? And offensively, with the run presence, can we make up for what we're losing with Highshaw so that the defense still is on their feet so that when Daniels does needs to throw, he's got plenty of opportunity. So I look forward to this game. This is going to be tremendous battle, tremendous test for KU. It's funny because it's at 11 a.m. If the Hawks pull off the victory, they'll be the first team in college football of this season to be bowl eligible, which that's kind of crazy to think about because before the season started, no one had any real belief that they were going to be bowl eligible, but they're sitting just one win away and they have a perfect chance this weekend to do so. So Tyler, give me your final predictions for the game. How do you see this thing shaking out? And when that final horn goes off, what are we looking at?
I think it's going to be an offensive game. We're going to have to, like you kind of touched on, if we can run the ball, go on some longer drives, keep that TCU offense off the field. I think that's some of what Iowa State did to us because in the second half, I think we only had 40 total yards of offense and we only ran. It wasn't very many plays, but they dominated time of possession. So I think if we can win there, and our offense, if we can capitalize in the red zone, score touchdowns when we need to, I think we'll be right there. As far as the final score, I'm going to be positive and say KU 41, TCU 38.
Okay, so pretty high scoring. They've got the over under at 68.5, so that would put them over. I think it's going to be high scoring as well. KU, like I said, they are a 7-point underdog. So far this season, KU has not lost the spread battle. They've covered the spread or surpassed the spread in every game. So I do expect that to remain the same this weekend. I do think it's going to be high scoring. For me, I think it's the first team to 40 probably has the best chance of winning. But if we find this in a game where it's under 30 because both defenses are on the up and up, I would still put the favor in KU because of the home crowd. It is hard to play poorly when you have a sold out crowd for the third week in a row, college game day, all the emotions high, former players are back. You got all the recruits on hand. So this is going to be an emotional game. And if KU can channel that emotion and put it into positive energy on the field, this should be a game that KU pulls off and technically pulls off the upset and moves to 6-0. So any other final thoughts you have on this game? Anything that stands out to you that we should probably make sure our listeners know about?
Um, I would just say, like you mentioned, the crowd I think will be a big factor. And you touched on it. We'll have to channel that the right way. I think maybe early on we might come out a little amped. Because it's hard not to get wrapped up in the crowd like that. College game day, there's a lot of emotion playing into that, and I think we may come out a little, wound up to start, but I think we'll settle in, and I'm expecting a great game.
All right, so guys, like we mentioned, college game day starts at 8 a.m. Saturday morning on the hill, on the Campanile. So fill the hill as the hashtag is going right now. And then at 10 a.m. when that show moves into the stadium, if you've got tickets, please make your way in there as quickly as you can so you don't miss anything there, any of the final picks and whatnot. And then, of course, let's pack the booth for that 11 a.m. kickoff. And once that hits, it's showtime. So fill the hill in the morning, pack the booth for kickoff as we cheer on our Hawks to a sixth straight victory and bowl eligibility. Rock Chalk. This was another episode of the Sports Authority Gurus podcast. For future episodes, you can find us on Spotify, Podbean.com, the iHeartRadio app, and on YouTube. Wherever you do listen to us from, please hit the subscribe button give us a great review, and most importantly, share with your friends.